on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Well, we've been waiting long enough, and we finally decided to just dive right in. And it's not any more fun diving right in than thinking about it for the last 2 weeks. Or hearing the recaps, newsadvance.com, Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast, and Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com, including yesterday and previous times on the morning warm-up with Trey Lyles, 7 to 8 a.m., VTRN Sports app. And all of them have covered this story really well. And, of course, our very own TJ Wilkerson, who may chime in today, and if he's not, this is not personal. He's not trying to evade information. TJ has been very much under the inclement weather that he has personally been feeling. So he's trying to budget himself so that he can be available to do high school football tomorrow, the Fast Lane tomorrow, and continue with his double duty. And he is soldiering on. So context for that. But as it relates to this situation, and, we did a Trostall.com fast take on this earlier today, and we tried, and there's no easy way to encapsulate this whole Logan Thomas, Brookville, Seminole District, VHSL situation and cover everything in 30 seconds. So if we missed anything, we ask you to please give us a little bit of forgiveness. We're doing the best we can. I think the gist of what we're trying to cover with it, and I think some people maybe get more lost in the weeds on that. And again, it's totally understandable, especially if you're not listening to the Fast Lane where we can go into more nuanced situations and discussions. But it just feels like nobody wins in this situation. I get it. There's a lot of it's been made about the fact that there were clear guidelines for the Thomas family of what they needed to do to be eligible, and yet those guidelines were not particularly met. I don't pretend to be a legal expert in that regard. Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com has been on site more covering that particular situation, and our very own TJ Wilkerson is more plugged in at Brookville calling their football games for a competing radio station. So, please, TJ_Wilkerson 8, Bryson Gordon, Twitter, Instagram, or his articles at newsadvance.com. I'll defer to that. But when you're talking about what Bob Alvis, I think, said yesterday very well, and if you missed that chat, you can go back and check it out. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
As Coach Brian would remind us, right there. But Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast, who's been tied in doing high school football and basketball and other sports in play-by-play and PA announcing roles for multiple decades now, not to date him, but kind of to date him, to show his veteran experience. You're talking about he said, she said in a lot of these areas. And unless you're he or she, there's an element of information that's probably not going to be fully understood or conveyed. And I fully believe I'm not he or she in this situation. And I know there are multiple he's and she's with Logan Thomas and his wife and their stepsons, or his stepsons, her sons. And then obviously the VHSL, Brookville, and the Seminole District. There are a lot of he's and she's involved in this situation. But when there is an element of he said, she said, and we're not to the end of the road, I think by virtue of that in essence, doesn't that speak to a communication breakdown of some sort? I know the policies of what the Thomases and Brookville needed to do for the players to technically be eligible to play were apparently laid out months ago. But if there's a communication breakdown to this particular degree, there seems to have been an issue. Add into it the fact that this has been my opinion for quite a while. Call me jaded. We've seen it around here. I can't remember if it was Bryson Gordon at some point in the last couple of weeks in the morning warm-up, 7 to 8 a.m., VTRN Sports app at 93.3 FM. Or if it was Bob Alvis yesterday. It's all, to an extent, people that are covering this very well, their knowledge is, to an extent, blurring together. But I have largely been of the belief that transfers happen all the time. Whether you want to admit it or not, they do. And this is, first of all, don't go bagging on LCA for players from the area transferring to them. And yes, I understand they do it more. It's not a school-zoned area, so you have to literally transfer in. It may be a non-athlete transferring in kindergarten, or it may be an athlete transferring in high school. But in essence, you have to transfer in to a private school. Same thing with my alma mater, VES, or the other great private schools in the area. Like, in essence, that's what you have to do. But we've seen this before. I've seen it countless times. Heritage, the running back, God bless him, David Bradley, who suffered the leg injury, formerly Brookville, I believe, and now at Heritage. That's not the only one. I call Jefferson Forest High School football games from on 100.9 FM. And they've had plenty of guys that are sitting there going, wait a second, didn't they play against this guy last year? And now they're for JF? Or vice versa. They're guys that have played for JF, and then the next year they're gone somewhere else, including public schools. And there are easy ways around this. So that's my other situation is the details may have been clearly laid out to the Thomas family in this regard. And again, I don't pretend to know exactly all the information. I'm not tied in. I don't know anybody personally on any side of the equation with this. I just think it stinks because we've seen other schools. This is a routine thing. If you think it's bad around here with the occasional transfer, it was more prevalent when I was in Martinsville, Henry County back 10, 15 years ago. Love my time there. But the old adage was if you wanted to play football, you went and lived with, I'm going to use air quotes for those watching it, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, and VTR in Sports on Facebook Live, Instagram Live now, as well as YouTube. But you transferred to a relative that lived in the county. Or if you lived in Henry County and you wanted to play basketball and Martinsville is the powerhouse, you transferred with a relative in the city of Martinsville. Like this stuff has gone on for an eternity. And it's more prevalent in the 757, the Virginia Beach area. It's prevalent in the Washington, D.C. area. It's prevalent in the Richmond area. It's prevalent all around. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but there are workarounds and ways for this to happen all the time. And I've heard so many stories about this, and I will put my knowledge, not going on the record with players and not trying to out them and, oh my God, can you believe this? To me, again, maybe I take a 10,000-foot view on this, but it evens out in the wash. I just hate it because, you got kids that don't get as many opportunities to play as they normally would. Logan Thomas's kids. And by all accounts, these are not your just local example here. Juan Thornhill's, Gideon Davidson's, or the Edmonds brothers who are can't-miss college prospects and are already locked into their next destination. They would benefit from an opportunity to play more games. Just raw game film and games played. Even if they don't go to the next level, they're missing an opportunity to play with players with whom they want to play. The Thomas family. Look, okay, I don't know whether they're zoned to Jefferson Forest or zoned to Glass or Heritage or Liberty or Brookville. Obviously, that's not it. But I'll use this JF as an example. They might have a house in Forest and then rental properties in the Timberlake area. But it would look a lot weirder and it would seem a lot more odd if Logan Thomas's family is playing for Jefferson Forest. I get it. We call JF games. They get the boost from having those great athletes out there for JF. But it would be really weird if a guy who is literally synonymous with Brookville, his kids are playing at some other school in the Seminole District. So there are all these angles to it. And at least we get to have some nuance now in the fast lane. But above all, it sucks because whether it's this or Rustburg and Jefferson Forest, and all these are legitimate cases and situations. And you're more than welcome to share in with your perspectives, and we welcome them. We try to put some nuance behind it at TJ_Wilkerson8 and Fast Lane Ed Lane on our social media platforms. But, I just hate it because it's clouding what's ultimately going to transpire. And then, if the Thomas kids play and the VHSL deems them ineligible or the Seminole District deems them ineligible or some combination of that, it could result in not only, forfeiting the games, which, I think, let's be real, I think, vacating wins, it's like in college sports, it's kind of worth it if you get the outcome. Or, if nothing else, the players, in this case, just get a chance to play with their brethren. But if you're going to start punishing other Brookville athletic programs, whether it's, football team in the future or other sports, that's one where you just sit there and go, man, this really stinks that this is where we are. And I understand you need to have, there have to be repercussions for things that take place. I'm not disputing that. But it stinks because, I'd like to see us be able to talk about local sports and high school sports. And I know these things pop up. I'm not naive to the fact that this doesn't occur. But I also am not naive to the fact that I've seen this in so many other programs where players move from one location to the other because that's really where they want to go to school. And it has happened all across the area. So that's the part that I think stinks. And the whole lose proposition is, I don't think anybody comes out of this looking perfectly vindicated and great. Some people have issues with the Thomas family. Other people are on the Thomas side and they have issues with the VHSL or the Seminole District or Brookville High School. They're warring factions here when in reality, the point of high school sports at the end of the day is still to bring people together. And that part just stinks as somebody who covers it and likes to see the good. I'm not naive. I'm not, head in the clouds, burying it in the sand, up my backside in this regard, but it just is what it is. So that's kind of my overview on it. It's why we've taken a while to discuss this here in the fast lane, wanting to try to apply some nuance. It's a lot more than we could do on that 30-second trostlawcom fast take. But if you're involved in a painful 30 seconds of an auto accident and the insurance company is trying to screw you around, Trost Law can help at 777-HURT and trostlawcom. So, TJ, where was I off base? Where was I wrong? And you can talk as much or as little as you wish, since we're trying to be mindful of your physical ailments and conditions.
I think you're on key. I do think when people show out examples, I think it's easy to blame LCA, but keep in mind, LCA is a private school and it's easy to blame them. But when you look at Brookville, I feel like the Thomas boys and Logan Thomas, they said they followed every rule possible, that they've been in the district. Now it's said they've owned 4 houses, supposedly. The reason the Thomas boys played is because the judge let Brookville cater the decision, because the judge said no, but he said the VHSL had no probable cause. They didn't have the right case. So can the VHSL come up with the case and throw more sanctions? Absolutely. But Brookville did what they felt like needed to be done, and that's why they played. It's not Brookville trying to be like, screw you, VHSL. It's Brookville saying, oh, we get to make the decision. Okay, let the kids play. These are seniors that don't have much longer.
I get that. And I think a lot of that is very true. And we appreciate the feedback and the nuance on that, TJ. This is TJ Wilkerson speaking, just for full context. If you're hiding under a rock or unaware, he broadcasts Brookville High School football games. We do JF. I know we'll kind of be warring in the press box next week. Although, look, I don't know about you, TJ, but the better all of our local sports teams do, people ask, like, who's your favorite team? Tech or UVA? Who's your favorite team? Glass, Heritage. I want them all to do well, because the better they do, the more fun it is to cover. And frankly, the more fans are interested and engaged in what's going on. I know it may not be believable if you're a fan of, JF, that TJ wants JF to do well because he does Brookville games and did LCA games. Or if you're a fan of Brookville or some other school, you may not believe that, I like the other schools to do well when I broadcast JF football games. But the reality is, the rising tide lifts all boats in that regard. Mediocrity is not great. Virginia Tech football is a great example of that. You want passionate fans, and there are so many of them around here, that you want that to be able to be rewarded with a good product. But, you hate it because it's overshadowing what's taken place, and there are multiple sides, and ultimately this is dividing people as opposed to bringing them together. Meanwhile, if you want to bring people together at a fun event for over 60% off the list price, one great place to do that is at a Liberty Flames football game. And you can get those tickets for 62% off the list price at InsaneRadioDeals.com now through next Friday, Halloween. Those scary specials and all food items. Don't go to the restaurant. Don't go to the Liberty Flames ticket office and think you're going to get the discount there, or the Star City App Marathon webpage. You go to InsaneRadioDeals.com. You make your purchase. We'll either send you a code, we'll email you the tickets, or we will mail you the gift certificate to your establishment to get the discount that you apply for and purchase at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Have to provide clarity because apparently people need that in this day and age. Meanwhile, speaking of clarity, I guess things are not as clear as they need to be in the NBA, which is where we go in the
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics, done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
Well, 2 arrests were made today in the NBA. One is a former player and coach, Chauncey Billups.
Are you that dumb?
I think the answer, at least based upon the initial reports, and yes, the legal system will play out, but this is not Portland Police Department arresting the Trailblazers coach. This is the FBI. When they get involved, it gets a lot more serious really, really quickly. So the FBI arrested Chauncey Billups for being involved, allegedly, we need to include that, in an underground poker ring tied to the American Mafia. I mean, really? I don't know whether he knew it was tied to the Mafia, whether he was just desiring of being involved in a high-stakes poker operation. But here's a novel concept. For a former NBA player who has got so much money in his particular bank account that you would think he's somebody that should have that. By the way, we're going to do, yes, there we go. Perfect. Chauncey Billups' net worth. That is the biggest question. Somebody who has earned $35 million allegedly in their career. Again, we'll presume he's in one of the People's Republic states in America, and half that is going to Uncle Sam. $17.5 million in take home. And oh, by the way, he's getting paid well to be the Trailblazers coach. If you want to be involved in high stakes poker, take the plane down from Portland to Las Vegas. It might even be written into your contract that you can use the private plane of the Portland Trailblazers. Former owner, the Allen family, and soon to be, maybe he is the current owner, Tom Dundon, who's the billionaire who owns the Carolina Hurricanes. Take the PJ down to Vegas. Play in one of those. Spend your money on a poker tournament or earn a lot of money. If that gets you off and that's how you blow off steam, go for it. But there's a smarter way to do this. And then we knew about the situation involving former Hargrave postgraduate and Louisville Cardinals guard Terry Rozier, who's now at the Miami Heat. But he has been arrested, and for a while now had been linked to sports betting involving NBA games. But now he was formally arrested in Orlando, where the Heat played the Magic last night. He was arrested at an Orlando hotel. Big picture about these situations, just kind of wonder, is it because these guys just spend money like it's going out of style and actually need the money? Is it because they have this, quote, I can't be touched attitude, and they don't realize that, there are a lot of people that can cover up your mistakes. And so that clouds your judgment of accountability, unlike normal people. But if there's an organization that just doesn't care about ability to buy off certain problems, the FBI is probably at the top of the list of those. Just saying.
Hey, just to confirm, there's a third arrest. Damian Jones with the LeBron rumor.
Oh,
he's just been confirmed to be arrested.
So he has now been arrested. So we have a third that's been involved, which just adds the question. Thank you for that, TJ. Is it because these guys are so thirsty, competitive, arrogant enough to believe that they'll always win no matter what, that when they're challenged in any walk of life, they'll do something as ridiculous as being involved in these type of betting operations? There are a lot of ways to spend money, blow off money. Just ask James Harden, who has his jersey retired at certain gentlemen's clubs in the Houston area. If you want to blow off steam that way, great. If you want to bet, just fly out to Vegas. They'll take care of you. They know you got a lot of money, and then you're probably going to spend it all. At least you'll get the VIP treatment, and you'll be able to enjoy plenty of VIP-like experiences out there. But that's where it just is, really? That's the lack of judgment that you most routinely showed? Meanwhile, judgment in.
Number 4.
Is he begging to be fired at this point at Auburn? Hugh Freeze came out and said that he would like a vote of confidence from the Auburn Athletic Department and Administration. Look, the reason we bring that up is not just because he's the former Liberty Flames coach, but there are sentiments out there that Freeze would want to return to Liberty, and there are people around Liberty that would want Hugh Freeze to come back to the area. That is a topic for a different point in time. But this is part of the Hugh Freeze experience. Does he need the validation of a vote of confidence that much that he needs his administration to bring it up when things are going poorly, and it would mean a lot for him? I mean, between that and then the fact that the golf outings got a lot of play in the summer, and it was something that was a bigger deal. It was existent in Lynchburg, but he had Liberty humming in a way that it's a lot harder to at Auburn. But it speaks to where his issues a bit. Hugh Freeze's 2-9 in one possession games, 1-12 against ranked teams. At Liberty, they had a talent advantage over a lot of teams they faced, and so they punched above their weight class in beating teams like Virginia Tech or Syracuse or BYU or Arkansas, or coming close at Wake Forest, at NC State and others, and then beating a lot of other teams that they should have beat. And if he was back at Liberty, I think truthfully, Hugh Freeze could really roll through the competition in Conference USA because he knows how to accrue a talented roster, maybe with a lot of red flags. Yes, that's part of it as well, but he knows how to accrue a talented roster and put the infrastructure in place to keep things going well. But in the SEC, where everything is even and your talent advantage of acquiring players through whatever means possible is no different than every other school that will also go to whatever means possible to acquire players, you need to have the X's and O's, either acumen and or dedication, and Trey is going to hate me for saying this, but attention to detail to solve these problems. And that clearly is an area where Hugh Freeze would need a major level of improvement. Meanwhile, speaking of the Liberty Flames,
Number 3.
former Liberty Flames guard Talon Peter. He is on the opening roster for the Indiana Pacers this evening. He would become just the 4th NBA player to play in a regular season game if/when he gets time on the floor. This is remarkable in and of itself. This is a guy that was a Division II player just a couple of years ago. Came to Liberty, has improved his stock, and ended up leaving Liberty. And a lot of people thought he was just not going to push for an extra year of eligibility. Instead, he literally gets drafted in the second round of the NBA draft. And that's when, I know Liberty updated their roster a couple of weeks before the NBA draft, but that's when people were like, okay, so now he's definitely not coming back to Liberty because he's actually been drafted in the NBA. If he doesn't go drafted, I genuinely think maybe he's going the Diego Pavia route and trying to push for some of those pre-Liberty years to not count against his eligibility. So it is a remarkable story in that sense. And I think this is the ultimate recruiting pitch for Richie McKay for Power 5, Power 6, if you want to include the A-10, but bounce back players from that particular level. Because they brought in players from the Big Ten, Isaiah Eaton, Minnesota, and Josh Smith as well. They brought in players from the ACC, Ryan Jones from Virginia Tech. The SEC, the Big East, other conferences, Liberty could go after those type of guys, and you have a coaching staff that knows how to identify the right character guys. You trust their sports science to be able to keep guys as healthy as you reasonably could, and that is a positive for Liberty and one that's worth reminding yourself of. Meanwhile,
Number
2 nuggets when it comes to Virginia Tech coaches. One of them being former Virginia Tech guard Kayla King. She'll be part of Sean Poppy's staff for women's basketball at Clemson as a grad assistant. King was a 4-year starter for the Hokies, big part of that 2023 Final Four run, second all-time in games played at Virginia Tech. But I love this move for Kayla King to come to Virginia Tech. It's really cool to see that. Like, it genuinely is to see that. And for all the issues surrounding people and their perception of Kenny Brooks, he's a guy that his staff and players are very loyal to them, and it has shown itself off in this. Meanwhile, the other side of that
number 1.
former Virginia Tech star Liz Kitley has announced, and Virginia Tech has announced, that she has been hired, I am not joking, as an assistant to the head coach at Virginia Tech. Or, to cue up our friends from The Office,
And that's where you have an assistant regional manager.
Yes, it is. Assistant to the regional manager.
Same thing.
No, it's not. It's lower. So
It's close.
assistant to the head coach, not assistant head coach at Virginia Tech. Just a funny way to play the soundbite, but again, Kenny Brooks tree player comes back. There's a lot of affinity between Liz Kitley and, yes, probably Kenny Brooks, but clearly Virginia Tech. They honored her last year. She's coming back to be an assistant to the head coach and will serve in a multitude of roles around the Hokies and women's basketball. I love this. It's somebody, if they want to get into coaching, it's great. And Liz Kitley, obviously, with her injury history, this is a phenomenal backup plan given what has transpired, unfortunately, for her. Meanwhile, when we return, what will transpire for NASCAR at Martinsville? We'll get a double look at that. First, Steve Post, lead pit reporter for the Motor Racing Network, slated to join us in the fast lane right here on the VTR and Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTR and Sports.
It's so worth the drive to big savings at the used car superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Shop local and save more with exceptional service and selection. Your search stops here with over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, plus a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you more choices with pre-owned cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranty. And some are even local one-owner vehicles. More than any other dealer in the area. Plus exceptional service, selection, savings, and financing options, and top dollar for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with 11 new car brands and over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. And we're proud to support our local schools and community. The Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier car dealer, locally and family-owned for over 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Yummy.
Looks should not be deceived, especially when you place your order. Now under new ownership and newly staffed, Oliver's on Rivermont has a guarantee for you. What you see on the menu is what you'll get in every order. It's the same great-looking menu at Oliver's on Rivermont, now with new additions like pork chops, ribs, and pasta sticks. And the new chef is the master of consistency, so what you order is what you'll get every single time at Oliver's on Rivermont. Want an outdoor oasis? The Concrete Wizard can restore and revitalize your pool deck or patio. After the Concrete Wizard works some magic, your old, tired concrete will look new again. For pool decks, the Concrete Wizard can install a safe, innovative rubber surfacing option that's slip-resistant, soft, and easy on the feet. A great choice for families and anyone concerned about safety. Visit theconcretewizard.com for some ideas, then contact them today for a free consultation to create your perfect outdoor oasis.
Plenty of large insurance companies know something. If you're injured in an auto accident, it can feel overwhelming. They've defended themselves in thousands of personal injury cases while you've never been there. Thankfully, I have. Hi, I'm Dustin Rosser with Trost Law. I began my legal career defending insurance companies before joining Trost Law. I know how insurance companies think and how to navigate the complex legal system. So if you're injured and need someone to fight for you, just call me at 777-HURT and visit trostlawcom.
Halloween isn't here yet, but that doesn't mean you have to wait till the day of trick-or-treating to go out and have fun. Because we have scary, fun experiences for you at 62% off at InsaneRadioDeals.com, brought to you by VTRN. That's right, folks. We're doubling the love at 62% off list price items like Star City Half Marathon, Liberty Flames tickets, Rise Up Climbing Day and month passes, and Aqua Trek Adventures. All this and more now to November 3rd on InsaneRadioDeals.com.
Virginia's source for sports. VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg.
Hi, this is Zach Mackey, the voice of Virginia Tech men's basketball. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Fascinating chat, by the way, on the latest MRN Crew Call podcast with a guy that we usually get on around the spring race. We're more jammed up when it comes to the fall, but they're not. They've had the VPs of competition at Penske, Gibbs, and most recently Hendrick Motorsports, our guy Chad Canals, on the MRN Crew Call podcast the last couple of weeks. Canals was this week's guest, and the man who was part of that interview with Todd Gordon, the former crew chief, Steve Post, lead pit reporter for the Motor Racing Network, joining us now in the Fast Lane. Postman, glad to be speaking with you. We will get to that in just a moment, but are you passing out flyers? Are you going to have yard signs on display post for mayor since you go to your own home track, essentially the heart and soul of your favorite NASCAR racing circuit venue, Martinsville Speedway, this coming weekend?
Yeah, I cannot wait to get up there. I loved your promo, the mayor of Martinsville. I'm still advocating for a third, maybe a fourth race. If we go to like a 3-round playoff, maybe 2 of them at Martinsville. Maybe we kick off. I don't know. Darlington's a pretty good kickoff. Maybe we go to Martinsville and then we go back later. No, I'll tell you, it's my favorite weekend of the year coming up to Martinsville. I love the fall race there. Just love everything about it, and can't wait to get up there this weekend. It's going to be awesome.
It's crazy because they're two totally different approaches to how a race would unfold. Correct me if I'm wrong. The spring race, it's shorter. It probably does need to be shorter. I'm a fan of shorter races in a lot of situations, including the spring race at Martinsville. But 500 laps, there's a different level of urgency you get when it comes to fall racing at Martinsville.
It really is, because it's the cutoff race for the playoffs. And I think we've got a fascinating setup on it. There's 8 drivers in the round of 8. 7 have won at Martinsville. Okay, the one who has not won, Chase Briscoe, he doesn't have to worry about winning at Martinsville again, which means he'll probably win. But when you look at the drivers, not only Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell, who are locked in, but when you look at a Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney's won the last 2 fall races at the racetrack. Chase Elliott's won there before. I mean, this thing is loaded up with drivers who have had success at Martinsville. William Byron won there in the spring of last year. And it's just going to be fascinating to see who does what. And then part of our conversation with Chad Canals on crew chief is what the temperature, what the weather does. Are we going to have widened out Martinsville where they're running all over the racetrack? Or we're going to have stick to the bottom Martinsville where you got to move somebody? And I think Sunday afternoon, 500 laps around that joint's going to be a lot of fun. That's for sure.
Can't wait to see what happens with that. You guys had a great conversation with Chad Canals on the MRN Crew Call podcast. I listen to double the speed, so it's like 15 minutes instead of 30, but they're real quick, easily digestible podcasts with you and Todd Gordon. And we're chatting about that with Steve Post of the Motor Racing Network now, because when looking at Martinsville, there's the analytics angle, and it's a great discussion with Chad Canals about the role of analytics. Where does that go in terms of the research the teams do to compare the race conditions at Martinsville Speedway for this fall race compared to the spring where the weather was different, and frankly, the last couple of years? Are there races where the teams are going, that's the race in this next-gen car setup that mirrors what we will get at Martinsville on Sunday the most closely?
I think that's the mystery. And we've got a different left side tire going to Martinsville. We've ran this left side tire at Richmond. We've ran it at New Hampshire, so we have a little data on it. But what's the data for 60-degree temperatures on concrete? What's the data if it's 65 degrees or 68 degrees on concrete? And I think that's the thing. And I think, I think, and I love the discussion because, I listen to a lot of sports talk radio and we hear about baseball analytics, pulling a pitcher, even though he's doing well because the pitch count. We hear about analytics with football. We hear about analytics with it. And analytics has become a big part of NASCAR racing. And that's why I like the conversation with Chad. And you have all the analytics and you have all the data and you have the war room back in your home base that are running all the numbers. But the bottom line of it is, what's it feel like today at this racetrack? What does my driver sound like? Not what the car's doing. What does he sound like? When Denny Hamlin tells you the car's good at Martinsville, I'm good to go. Well, the analytics might say something different, but what does the seat of the pants for a driver like Denny Hamlin mean, or a Ryan Blaney, who's so good at that racetrack? And so the whole discussion is fascinating, and it kind of just came to mind. And Chad was so great on it because he's an old school racer, and he believes in all the data, believes in all the numbers, believes in running all the numbers, but you have those as a tool. You don't live by those, and the thing of it is if you make a bad call, you can point to that. But if you make a good call just by the hunch or the seat of your pants, that could be the winning call. We've got the opposite end of that. Paul Wolf, the crew chief for Joey Logano. Paul Wolf, I am sure he studies the analytics, but it would not be you don't know that from watching him call a race, because that is a guy that'll take a pair of dice and just sling them out on the racetrack. And he's got a driver in Joey Logano that believes that, well, Paul said it. If Paul said we're going to change 5 tires on 2 pit stops, well, then it's going to work. And Paul is just one of those seat of the pants guys. And I think it's a fascinating dynamic. And I really think it's going to be in play because I think of the uncertainty of the temperature at Martinsville on Sunday afternoon. We're in this point where, we've ran into this at Bristol, where we go there in the spring and we have no tire fall off, where tire wear, tires losing grip. We go there in the fall and it's a little bit cooler, then the tires are just all over the place. And so we're just going to have to see what we have here, or it's the inverse. We go in the spring and then in the fall, but it's just going to be interesting to see. And it's such a dynamic. And I think to me, these crew chiefs are going to earn their nickel, and the ones that move on are likely on the basis of the calls the crew chief makes, not only in setting the cars up, qualifying and practice on Saturday, and then the race calls on Sunday afternoon.
2:17 p.m. is when the green flag drops at Martinsville Speedway on Sunday afternoon. You can hear Steve Post, the lead pit reporter for the Motor Racing Network there. I'll hopefully see you on pit road. I'd be delighted if I bump into you on Sunday, but I know you'll be busy, so I will not take it personally if you're engulfed in real serious things as opposed to the not so seriousness of talking to me. I look at this as a 4-pronged approach, Steve, in terms of the fact that there's so many unknowns until the green flag flies on Sunday. By the way, we're getting later in the month of October means the sun goes down earlier. It goes down parts of the track shaded a little bit earlier, which that changes conditions. So our 4-pronged approach is, of the drivers that still need to win to get themselves guaranteed for a championship 4 appearance, joining Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe at Phoenix, where do you rank in terms of the best 2 to 3, where you're the most confident in the driver's ability to relay and adjust with his crew chief, the crew to make that, and the workshop on site and back off site to communicate all that info in a condensed amount of time, so that which drivers will be the best equipped to handle the unpredictable and potentially changing on the fly conditions?
Well, I think we just need to look at really who's done it the most recently. Okay, of those, and Denny Hamlin won there in the spring. But Ryan Blaney has won the last 2 fall races, and they're able to dial that car in so it rolls around the bottom of the racetrack. So I think the one that I'm going to pick and talk about is Ryan Blaney, and Ryan is in a must-win situation. He's not going to go on points to go forward. I mean, unless the wheels fall off from both Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell's car, Blaney's going to need to win and get in. And I think Blaney is in that category where they can come up there and put a dominant car. They've done it the last couple of years and be able to go win. So I like Blaney. And then for the gamble approach, I'm going to stick at Team Penske. I like, I also like Paul Wolf and Joey Logano. I just think that I just think that when they had a chance to eliminate them at the Roval, I have a chance of the other 7 teams, including Ryan Blaney, even though he wanted Team Penske to go forward. I think you're like, ooh, man, Joey Logano is not going to be out. They're not going to fall down easy. And so I kind of like Team Penske if I have to pick two cars to make their way forward into the next round. And ironically, they're fifth and or sixth and seventh. So I think Chase Elliott's in worse shape than they are. But I just like the Team Penske approach because of the history with Ryan Blaney and the willing to take chances of Paul Wolf and the willing to pay off on those chances of Joey Logano.
What about the fact that this race, we've seen it before, can get physical in a number of different ways, whether it's the Hail Melon, and obviously drivers can get physical with their cars, not to mention everything's at stake. Does that give the edge to Penske, knowing that Logano has no problem getting physical, Blaney probably a little bit less so, but you look at the other drivers at Hendrick, Byron, Elliott, and Larson, maybe they never really had to, whereas we know that Penske will get physical and move somebody out of the way. And if push comes to shove, and it often does in Martinsville, that could be a deciding factor too.
Yeah, if this comes to push and shove, then my money's on Logano. Yeah, I mean that's just and very well could, Ed. It very well could. But when you look at the other six drivers, Christopher Bell not historically going to do that. Kyle Larson not going to do that. William Byron not going to do that. Ryan Blaney not going to do it. Chase Elliott. They all have histories of being very, very clean drivers, and that's not saying Joey Logano is a dirty driver. Joey Logano just has a history of being very selfish at the end of these races. He's done that before, and he very well will do it again. And so if it comes down to a brawl, if it comes down to a street fight, then I think again, if Joey Logano is in position, he's gonna be really tough to handle, because he has no conscience as far as that goes. He's an assassin out there. He doesn't have a code of consciousness that I think the other drivers have. And, ironically, the only other driver that's in the playoffs is Denny Hamlin. He's locked in. He's probably the only other driver that plays by that same code. I think Chase Briscoe plays by the code of kindness, if you will, too. So if this thing becomes a brawl, then again, I'm looking at where Logano sits. And if he's in the middle of it, I think he mixes it up with the best of them and stands in victory lane and gives us those big old smile and apologizes and gets ready to go to Phoenix.
Do you see a scenario, Steve, and does this even factor in, where other teams do what they can to make it more difficult, particularly Gibbs, who's got two drivers guaranteed a spot in Phoenix and maybe can afford to do this, where they make it more difficult on the Penske drivers, knowing how strong they are at Phoenix and wanting to box Logano and Blaney, particularly, out of an appearance in the championship four?
I think you could see that subtly, specifically from the Gibbs camp. I really think you could. They've been the one that have talked about those yellow cars. That's what they call Team Penske, those yellow cars. They talked about it after the Roval race, where they allowed Joey Logano back in the playoffs when him and Ross Chastain were battling for position there. And so I don't think it gets egregious. Last year at this race, we had some very egregious tampering with the races. And when we arrived at Phoenix, everybody, including the manufacturers, had a call from NASCAR where it's like, we're not going to tamper with these races. We're not going to monkey it up. So I don't think we're going to see drivers side by side at a slower pace like we saw last year blocking somebody. Now, does a Gibbs car pick right in front of a Penske car on pit road? Yeah. Here's the situation Gibbs is in. The best scenario that Gibbs has is one of the Gibbs cars winning. Because if one of the Gibbs cars wins, okay, it's Christopher Bell sits the best with points. Okay, it's him and Kyle Larson third and fourth. Okay, if Denny or Chase wins, it's going to be Bell and Larson unless they have a bad day. The same thing if Ty Gibbs wins. If Ty Gibbs wins, then we don't get a new winner. It's Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson. If Kyle Larson wins, so Christopher Bell wins, he moves on. The Gibbs camp, it's their interest to win the race, more so than worrying about it. Now, I do think Denny could mess around a little bit with the Penske guys. I don't see Chase doing it. I don't know, what they do as far as pit box selection, and I don't think it gets egregious. I think there could be some subtle things that happen along the way, but NASCAR last year after this race, and there was some serious side-by-side blocking going on by some manufacturers. I think NASCAR is very keen to this. They're going to be watching lap time. See, they can watch brake tracing. They can watch steering tracing. And boy, you don't want to get a foul of that if you're deemed to be manipulating anything beyond yourself trying to win the race.
Steve, couple more before we let you go. We really appreciate your time in the lead up to your favorite NAR track, Martinsville Speedway. One of them being Hendrick Motorsports. I didn't quite get any sentiment when I heard Chad Knaus on Crew Call when I was listening on my morning run today, by the way. When I run, I've listened to you. When you run, I hope you don't listen to me or else it's going to impact your performance negatively. But listening to Chad Knaus on that, I didn't get any sentiment that, they might try to help, Chase Elliott and William Byron a little more because Kyle Larson's point situation is better. Do you think that's the strategy, or is it more just pouring into every Hendrick driver, knowing that, if one of them gets the win, there's a good chance it's going to help somebody as well?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't sense there was a all hands on deck effort to try to help one or the other. Larson's in a different situation. He's going to have to point race. Chase Elliott and William Byron need to race for the win. And now where Alex Bowman's comes into play, they might learn a little bit from him in practice, or he might try something in practice, but that would go to all three teams. So I don't sense that there's any real direction there. I think, the Hendrick history at Martinsville is very, very good. And I think they're just relying on their individual teams and their history to somebody to step up to the plate, and the perfect scenario is Chase or William wins and Kyle Larson gets around Christopher Bell on points. So I think that's what they're looking for, and that would be the perfect scenario for them to get two cars into the championship.
Last one for Steve Post. You don't have to pick a winner if you don't want to, but we're always welcoming of that. Does the winner of the NASCAR race at Martinsville involve, if not one of the championship 8 drivers that still remain, a driver from one of those teams that leaves the door open for an Austin Cindric, who would be the ultimate long shot, or even Ty Gibbs or Alex Bowman to come in and assist their teams?
No, I think it's one of the championship 8. I think we get to this point in the season, and I think we've seen this. And when we've seen this, now Ross Chastain won at Phoenix, but I just think that these teams are hitting on all 8 cylinders. And I think, and again, I think Martinsville is a great track for them because Hendrick Motorsports is really good. Joe Gibbs Racing is really good. Team Penske is good. Yeah, maybe an Austin Cindric or an Alex Bowman or Ty Gibbs, but I wouldn't stack those 3 drivers up against the guys that are running for the championship. I think guys running for the championship are just better teams right now. So I think the winner comes from those 8. I'm not going to make a pick because I don't have a slight idea what's going to happen. Denny Hamlin could go up there and stink everything up, so I don't know necessarily the pick, but I think it does come from the 8 drivers that are running for the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's easy to say, especially since you'll be offering more insight on pit road on Sunday, but just wait till practice and qualifying. You got a better idea of how this thing's going to.
That's going to be key. Track position, especially if it's cold and this track stays a little bit narrow, you're going to need to qualify in the top 10, get a good pit box, and keep track position all day long. So that's going to be key. Practice and qualifying is going to be very critical this week.
Very much so, especially given the narrow pit lane at Martinsville. And if you can be one of those spots where either nobody's blocking you in, or especially those first 2 or 3 at the very end of pit road on the exit when you're getting out, it makes such a world of a difference.
Absolutely. So important.
It is. Steve Post, meanwhile, your insight's always important at the Postman 68. It's a pleasure to have you in the fast lane. We're glad we can make it work leading into the race weekend at Martinsville. Enjoy your trip up to Martinsville, and hopefully when I go down to Martinsville, we'll get a chance to give you a fist bump, if nothing else.
Sounds good, Ed. And when I run, I listen to nothing. I listen to silence, peace, birds, nature, and I'm getting ready to go run tonight. As a matter of fact, I did the podcast stuff and I listened to it, but I just find that I've got too much noise coming in my ears all day long. I think the running is one of those times where I take some time off and just kind of think. But when I do listen to stuff, or if I do listen to stuff, I'll dial it up. That's for sure.
Indeed. Steve, we'll dial you up again next time I'm on a morning run. It'll have to be next week, though. We appreciate your time today in the fast lane.
Thank you, Ed. We'll talk to you again.
It's always our pleasure. Steve Post in the fast lane. When we return, a different angle from one part of the Redneck Riviera, Martinsville, to a different part, Myrtle Beach, the technical Redneck Riviera. Our guy, Mike Neff of FrontStretch.com, with us in the fast lane, and he'll join us next.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Subaru. Love to drive? Then you'll love the all-new 2025 Subaru Wilderness family. These cars are built for adventure with symmetrical all-wheel drive, rugged capability, and legendary Subaru reliability. These stylish vehicles are ready for anything. Plus, every new Subaru we sell comes with an exclusive Terry Promise, a lifetime powertrain warranty. Visit us on Forest Road in Lynchburg or browse our inventory online 24/7 at terrysubaru.com. Terry Subaru. You'll love our cars.
Hi, I'm Chuck from Aquatrack Adventures in Salem. The Virginia Talk Radio Network and InsaneRadioDeals.com have helped our company grow by sharing our company's message throughout Central and Southside Virginia. The gift cards and experiences sold on InsaneRadioDeals.com have brought us many new customers. If you're a business that wants to grow with a message that resonates and gets results, I highly recommend InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Simply put, it works.
Looking for classic hits? We've got them on Rewind 1039. Lynchburg's classic hits, and we never stop the music for more than 90 seconds. Rewind 1039.
Do you want to experience the benefit of radio and digital advertising for your business, but have no or limited funds to advertise? Let us tell you about InsaneRadioDeals.com. No cash needed. We will advertise your business on our 8 over-the-air AM and FM stations and our digital platforms that distribute out news talk, sports, and classic hits in exchange for gift cards, tickets, or experiences that will be used for your business. This allows you to advertise across the entire Virginia Talk Radio network without any cash needed and to generate a large amount of new business. Last year, we started over 900,000 streams on our online platforms, so VTRN and InsaneRadioDeals.com is the place where your business gets heard. Want to learn more? Call Melinda 434-534-8500 or email info@virginiatalkradionetwork.com.
VTR in Sports, powered by ESPN Radio. The games play here. Starting this Friday with college football, as the Virginia Tech Hokies host the Cal Bears, with coverage starting at 5:30. Then an SEC doubleheader on Saturday, starting at 3 p.m. with Alabama taking on South Carolina, then Texas A&M taking on LSU. Catch all the big games on VTR in Sports, 93.3 FM, 1320 AM, the VTR in Sports app, and stream on your smart speaker. Open VTR in Sports.
After an unexpected bye week, Jefferson Forest Cavaliers football, presented by TroStall.com, returns Friday, October 31st for a spooky spectacle at the Brookville Bees. Your Central VA Flooring kickoff show starts at 6:30. Kick at 7 on the Virginia's Talk Station app, 100.9 FM Lynchburg, 95.5 FM Bedford, and Open Virginia Talk Radio Network on your smart speaker. JF Football is also presented by Apple Auto Glass, Clyde Smith Plumbing, The Concrete Wizard, Impact Church, and Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Bedford.
Hi, this is Bill Roth, voice of Virginia Tech football. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
He didn't just retweet, he also commented on LinkedIn. The sophisticated man from the Redneck Riviera, Mike Neff of FrontStretch.com, with us in the Fast Lane. When I think FrontStretch.com and think sophisticated, Trey Lyle's name often does not come to mind. God bless him. I had to get the dig in. Trey will be getting digged in at you. I think you got to dig in on the Front Stretch Happy Hour podcast at Dalton Hopkins. Of course, Brian Nolan always catches strays. That's just a given. So Trey is more than worthy of receiving those.
I'll get him in the morning, too, because I'm going to be on his show tomorrow morning.
He is more than deserving of whatever barb you choose to throw his way. He wants to talk the game. He's got to be prepared to back it up, which brings us to NASCAR at Martinsville, where drivers have no problem not only talking a big game, but also backing it up, particularly with the chrome horn. Do you expect this race to be a physical one, especially over the final, let's just say 100, 150 laps of the Cup Series race Sunday afternoon?
I wouldn't go that long. I think the last 50 to 70 laps, assuming there's some caution activity in there somewhere around that 70 to 50 lap area. I think once you get to that point, you start really looking at where you are in track position and where you need to be to advance to the final four. And of course, we're speaking for the final 8 guys. And I heard the postman, and I agree with him predominantly that most of those guys that are not locked in at this point in time are not known to rough people up to get an advantage. So there may be a little more tendency to it at Martinsville just because it's small and slow speeds. so you don't really have a chance of doing something to injure someone. But still, it's about reputation, and most of these guys are very conscientious about their reputation. And again, I agree with him about Logano. If anybody in there is going to put their nose in a spot that maybe they shouldn't to try to get the win, he's the one that will do it. So it'll be exciting. It always is. Martinsville is it's the oldest track still alive on a Cup schedule until we get North Wilkesboro back, and it's the only one left from the original schedule of the series. So it's got a long and a beautiful history, and I can't wait for this weekend.
You and me both. You mentioned North Wilkesboro. Some people, it's next year when they have a Cup points race that will do it for them. Just seeing it back in a meaningful Cup race, the All-Star race a couple of years ago, was enough to warm my heart and make me go, all right, this thing's back where it belongs, and we get to see big-time NASCAR racing at that. Heck, even seeing some one-off races. I know it's not the big deal, but the Xfinity and the Truck Series at Rockingham, which probably is about what the cap of that venue is, it's still better than nothing at those venues, having seen them discarded in one of NASCAR's more not so brilliant moves from a business side of things. That's a detour for a different time, though, in the fast lane. NASCAR at Martinsville this
Yes, sir. We'll get on that next year.
Yes, we will, when we're looking for topics at that particular time. NASCAR at Martinsville, though. Which organization do you trust more in the must-win scenario? Penske, because Blaney's won the last two, or Hendrick, because while they've been cold in the fall race there, they've got a real good history at Martinsville.
And all four of their drivers have won there in the last 10 races. So you're looking at an organization where everybody has taken home a clock in the last 5 years. So that's they know how to get the cars around there. At the same time, I agree with you on Blaney. Blaney has mastered this race in the fall, and there's no reason to think that he won't do it this time around. We've seen it in the past. Guys that didn't look like they were going to make it when they were coming into this race managed to pull it off. And if anybody of who's left that's on the outside looking in, it's Blaney that'll do it. And I honestly would like to see that purely for the excitement of Larson and Elliott. Larson and Byron. I forget who the last two are now that I'm saying that.
Larson and Byron.
Larson and Bell.
Yep.
Larson and Bell that are in it, on points right now. I would love to see that excitement of those two having to worry about it if Blaney's checked out by 3 or 4 seconds and leading coming down in the last 5 or 6 laps.
Are we sleeping on Joey Logano, William Byron, or Chase Elliott in terms of their opportunity to win this race because so much has been put into the recent and justified success of Ryan Blaney?
I think Byron's got a real shot. I mean, he's run well there the last few times that we've been up there. And I've constantly harped on the fact that it's an odd year, so Logano won't make it, but he keeps figuring out ways to advance. So I'm not going to hold that against him either. But right now, I think the ones you got to look for are Blaney and Byron and Larson. I think will be up in there mixing it up too. I just feel like Christopher Bell's just going to ride. I think he feels like he's got the point position. And as long as he can score some points in the first stage, maybe the second stage, I think he'll just be making it and not too worried about it. So I think the real intensity is going to be from Blaney, Logano, and I just drew a complete blank.
Byron?
Or not Byron. Yes. Golly.
We're okay.
Old age is setting in, my friend.
It is. Ertanaf.
Exactly. Come back around.
I'm clapping to try to get you back on track.
I appreciate that.
The winner at Martinsville, Mike Knapp, frontstretch.com, is with us in the fast lane. I know these are some of the same questions that we discussed with Steve Post of the Motor Racing Network. But does it come from this Championship 8 group of drivers?
Absolutely. There's always the shot that it can be somebody else, but Steve kind of alluded to it, and I allude to it all the way through the playoffs. The reason the playoff guys win a playoff races is because they're the best guys from the whole year. You get, the first round or so, you get some of the guys at the back end of the 16 and the 12 that fall off. But your top 8 guys, generally speaking, are guys that have had it in the top 8 or so for the last 2/3 of the season. They may take a little bit to get rolling early in the year, but usually as we're headed into the playoffs and on down the playoffs, the guys that were near the top for a reason, because they were running well. They're still running well, and that's why it'll be very rare if you see somebody outside of that top 8 win this race.
Neff, last one for you. Does it get squirrely and hairy, in particular, racing Penske hard, especially if you're Gibbs, knowing that you don't want them to get a berth at Phoenix given their dominance there?
I think it's totally possible for that. And as you mentioned, talking to Steve about possible team order type stuff, I hate to see that come around, but at the same time, let's not joke. We're talking about millions of dollars making it to the Final Four. And if you have a way to help your organization get some more millions of dollars, you're going to do it. So there may not be the I have an itch on my arm kind of moment, but you're going to see opportunities for guys to make it very difficult for guys that need to move forward if the opportunity presents itself, and they're going to do it. And one other thing I didn't hear you mention, I want to throw out here, make sure we get it in. We have a brand new left side tire coming for this race, and it's designed to fall off precipitously. So that could play in as well to where we may see a need with, 40 laps to go to actually have to have a pit stop. And if you start having money stops that close to the end at Martinsville, things get very exciting. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Mike Neff, MNeff Short Track on Twitter and Instagram. Here in the Fast Lane, W227BG Timberlake, WBGM AM Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna Danville South Side. We'll go a smidge over today because you bring up that left side tire, and this is where we'll wrap it up today. We're going to take out Denny Hamlin, as great as he's been at adjusting to tires and as fast as that crew is. He and Chase Briscoe are locked into Phoenix, so they don't count for this. Out of the other drivers, where they're in the, we got to have a good day on points and can't have catastrophe, or we need to win and get in. Which combination of driver, pit crew chief / competition off-site do you trust the most to be able to adapt given the unpredictable weather and that we don't quite know what we're getting out of the tire?
I have a hard time picking against Cliff Daniels and Kyle Larson. Listening to Cliff on a radio and how he never fluctuates. He never gets excited. He never gets dejected. It's always about the business and about what needs to happen. And that permeates that whole team. And they are as workmanlike as it gets. And if I'm picking one team, on top of the fact that Bell and Larson are going to be the two best at figuring out the tire because they're used to doing that from their dirt track routes. So I lean on them more than most of the other guys in the top 8 adjusting to this tire on the fly. So my pick out of that group would be Larson in your scenario.
You're our pick for frontstretch.com, much more than Trey Lyle. Mike, thank you for your time in the Fast Lane. It's great to chat with you and love catching up all the time. And if we don't do it before the end of the season or even the early part of the offseason, we'll chat again as we get closer to 2026.
It's always an honor, brother. And I got bumped a couple weeks ago, but it was for the Cubs.
Yeah.
So anytime I get bumped for the Cubs, I don't have a problem with it.
Hey, we love play-by-play. We enjoy it and embrace it, much like we embrace your insight, Neff. Thank you for sharing it today.
Take care, my friend. Thanks for having me on.
Mike Neff, frontstretch.com here in the Fast Lane, and how we choose to wrap it up today in the Fast Lane. If you missed anything, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, where you listen to podcasts, Facebook Live, YouTube, and Instagram, Twitter, and wherever else you consume us. TJ with Ty tomorrow in the Fast Lane. So join them 5 to 6 p.m. VTR and Sports app, 5 to 5:30 p.m. leading into Virginia Tech hosting Cal tomorrow afternoon. Meanwhile, on to ESPN Radio in progress.
Throw 10 picks.
Man, that really